year of skinny pop and sugar-free Jello crepes. We guzzled vitamin water and vodka. Toasting to high school and survival, complimenting each other's collarbones. Trying diets we found on the internet. Menthol cigarettes. Eating in front of a mirror. Donating blood. Replacing meals with other practical hobbies like making flower crowns or fainting. Wondering why I haven't had my period in months. Why breakfast tastes like giving up. Or how many more productive ways I could have spent my time today besides Googling the calories in the glue of a US envelope. Watching America's Next Top Model like the gospel. Hunching naked over a bathroom scale shrine. Crying into an empty bowl of Cocoa Puffs because I only feel pretty when I'm hungry. If you are not recovering, you are dying. By the time I was 16, I had already experienced being clinically overweight, underweight, and obese. As a child, fat was the first word people used to describe me, which didn't offend me until I found out it was supposed to. When I lost weight, my dad was so proud he started carrying my before and after photo in his wallet. So relieved he could stop worrying about me getting diabetes. He saw a program on the news about the epidemic with obesity, says he is just so glad to finally see me taking care of myself. If you develop an eating disorder when you are already thin to begin with, you go to the hospital. If you develop an eating disorder when you are not thin to begin with, you are a success story. So when I evaporated, of course, everyone congratulated me on getting healthy. Girls at school who never spoke to me before stop me in the hallway to ask how I did it. I say I'm sick. They say, no, you're an inspiration. How could I not fall in love with my illness? With becoming the kind of silhouette people are supposed to fall in love with? Why would I ever want to stop being hungry when anorexia was the most interesting thing about me?
The National Eating Disorder Association asked young women who have struggled with anorexia nervosa, what is it like to be anorexic? Here are a few of their descriptions. It's like being in an abusive relationship where one minute it's spewing hateful thoughts about you and the next it's apologetically promising that if you listen to what it says, you will achieve happiness.
It's like you've been swimming and swimming for hours, and every time you think you're about to find the shore, it moves further away. You're constantly exhausted and struggling for air. It doesn't end. You're drowning, and until you decide to stop reaching for that impossible goal weight and start eating, it's hell.
Like fighting in an invisible argument every single second of every single day. Like having a little bully sitting on your shoulder all day, every day, criticizing every single thing you say, do, eat, and think.
My eating disorder was like a faulty parachute. I would strap it on for safety, trust it, and I would jump from the plane. A brief moment of bliss would be followed by a crash landing and feelings of shame, regret, and remorse. I would stand up, brush myself off, put on a smile, and say, I am fine, and strap on the parachute again. I thought it was my safety. Living with an eating disorder feels like you're constantly at war, like your best friend who has helped you cope in the past is trying to kill you. Living with an eating disorder is not really living. It's like trying to take a breath in a smog-filled room. Each breath feels like it's killing you.
It is your secret shame and your greatest accomplishment all in one.
We interviewed a friend who has given us permission to share her story.
When were you first introduced to the idea of an eating disorder?
I was first introduced to the idea of eating disorders in grade 7 during health class when our teacher talked about it, and me and my friends all thought it was super weird that someone would ever just want to stop eating.
When was the first time that you realized it was affecting you, and how?
I first realized that it was affecting me when I was put into the hospital because I almost died. It took away a lot of time in my life, either at home or in the hospital. There was a lot of lying and sneakiness going on, and I didn't like to hang out with my friends very much. I was very antisocial for a while and very much isolated myself. That was probably the biggest impact it had. it also kind of depleted my body of anything and everything that I had.
What kind of treatment have you done?
I've done hospital treatments for the past 4 years on and off, inpatient, outpatient. There was a time where I was considering going into a residential home out of province, but that didn't happen. And then just being at home, meeting with individual therapists and doctors and stuff.
How did the environment impact your experience? Friends, family, institutions, society?
There's good environment and there's bad environment. So I have my friends who are really supportive and really want me to get better, but then there's also the environment of the world that wants everyone to be skinny and just kind of feeds into my own ideas. Um, Family, I mean, nobody ever really understands it, so that can sometimes not be exactly helpful, but I know that their intentions are really good. Environment, if it's nice outside, then it makes me feel a little bit better, which is easier to eat, definitely.
What has the journey to attempt to overcome your anorexia been like for you?
It's really difficult. It's basically a mind game. A lot of the times in treatment, they would say it's kind of like overcoming an addiction, but instead of, limiting yourself to the drugs or the alcohol or whatever, instead of not facing those, you have to face it every single day, 6 times, 7 times a day, which sometimes can just be the scariest experience of your life.
What would you tell others about this illness?
So the first time that I can really remember kind of thinking, oh, I'm just not going to eat, this is how I'm going to solve these things, was in about grade 9, grade 10, when I was on the school bus on the way back from my mechanics class. And of course, being in mechanics class, I was one of the only girls. And a guy on the bus, just joking around, said, "Katie, why don't you stop eating? You're so fat." And I remember in that moment just kind of thinking, yeah, that seems like it would solve the problem. Um, and so that was the first time that I ever kind of really considered it and was um, ever really considered the idea. Um, I would tell others that it's very individual. Like, you can look it up on Google and it says, anorexia nervosa is extreme weight loss, no appetite, due to self-image, but it's not just that. It's everything. Family history, personal history goes into it. Just basically everything that a person has ever lived through really can impact how you think about yourself. And sometimes it's not even that. Sometimes it just happens. There have been studies done where people go into it being perfectly healthy and they're just deprived of food, and afterwards they come out with an eating disorder. It's just a mental game, and it can affect anyone. Um, with that story that I told earlier, I would caution people to be careful with their words, and what they say to other people, because it can really have a very detrimental effect. But if I could tell one thing to just the whole wide world, I would say smarten up and keep eating your food, because it sucks being in the hospital and just not living life the way that it's meant to be.
Behavioral signs and symptoms can include obsession with calories, fat grams, and nutrition, pretending to eat or lying about eating, preoccupation with food, feeling fat despite being thin, comments about being fat, fixation on body image, harshly critical of appearance, denial that you're too thin, wearing loose, bulky clothing to hide weight loss, avoiding meal times or eating in front of others, exercising excessively, and dieting despite being thin. Possible health signs and symptoms can include skin can be dry, bruises easily, nails get brittle, thin hair growth over the body, response to being cold, lower blood pressure, slow heart rate and palpitations, stopping menstruating, constipation and stomach pain, dramatic weight loss, hair becomes thin and brittle, kidney failure, swollen joints, and weak muscles. According to Statistics Canada, anorexia nervosa affects up to 1% of females and 0.2% of males.
There is a marked variability in the prognosis for patients with anorexia nervosa. About 40% are completely recovered at follow-up and 30% are improved, but 20% remain unimproved or severely impaired.
Anorexia has the highest mortality rate of any mental disorder at approximately 5%. 33 to 50% of anorexia patients have a mood disorder such as depression. Suicide attempts occur in 20 to 30% of cases. Body dysmorphia is often linked with those who suffer from anorexia. According to the chart, compared to the national average lifespan of 80 years in females, those with anorexia live to be an average of 56, a 24-year difference.
According to CYC.net, someone with anorexia strives for thinness, has an unrealistic body image, their self-esteem is based on their weight, they experience dramatic weight loss, and they have an extreme fear of weight gain. Some of the problem behaviors you may come across are obsessive exercise, calorie counting, starvation, and restrictions on food, vomiting, the use of diet pills, laxatives or diuretics, and/or a constant anxiety about their body image. These youth may experience physical consequences such as the loss of muscular strength, thinning hair, fainting, or weakness. They may also experience feelings of depression or low self-esteem. Youth with eating disorders may feel like they have no control over their lives, and the only control that they do have is their eating habits.
There is really no single cause. However, here are some ideas that may play a role. Negative family influences, poor parenting, parents with substance abuse issues, parents with an eating disorder themselves, a history of abuse and/or obesity within the family, genetic factors and/or cultural pressures such as the media's pressure to be thin.
There are several different methods to treat anorexia nervosa. Medications are often only used to help with other mental health issues such as depression and anxiety. Hospitalization is used often to prevent death, suicide, or other medical crises. There's inpatient treatments where the individual will be in a 24/7 eating disorders program, and outpatient treatments where the individuals will live in their own homes and attend counseling sessions at the hospital or other facilities. Psychotherapy is the most common treatment that addresses underlying emotional and cognitive issues. There are two different types of psychotherapy treatments. There's cognitive behavioral treatment, which helps an individual focus on their thought process, self-talk, and self-image. There's also nutritional therapy, which helps an individual normalize and balance their eating patterns. Lastly, there's family-based treatment, which is an outpatient method. It's a strength-based approach that redirects all treatment focus on figuring out what the family and worker can do to help the individual recover.
According to Walden Eating Disorders, with a 75 to 90% success rate by the end of treatment and on a 5-year follow-up, family-based treatment is currently considered the best treatment for youth diagnosed with anorexia nervosa. The 3 stages of this treatment include weight restoration, returning control to the adolescent, and establishing healthy adolescent identity. Family-based treatment embraces the Maudsley approach, which is the belief that treatment is more effective when parents and family members are equipped with the skills and knowledge necessary to help the youth recover and return to normal adolescent life and development. An integral part of the family-based treatment model includes engaging in coached meals. During a coached meal session, parents and family receive in-the-moment training around how to support the individual firmly and compassionately through meal expectations geared towards reversing the effects of starvation. CYC.net cited the National Eating Disorder Association when describing some of the best considerations when working with those who are diagnosed with anorexia. It is important to know the distinctions between facts and myths about weight, nutrition, and exercise, because knowing the facts will help you reason against any wrong ideas that the youth may be using as excuses for their eating habits. Genuinely care about the youth, but be firm and consistent, and don't make promises you can't keep. Compliment youth on their awesome personalities and accomplishments. Role model self-acceptance, healthy eating, and exercise yourself. Lastly, and most important, remind them that you care and want them to be healthy and happy.
There are no specific medications to treat anorexia nervosa directly. However, because the illness is often linked to mental health, depression medications such as fluoxetine, Prozac, and anxiety medications such as benzodiazepines can be beneficial towards the treatment of this disorder. Doctors will not prescribe antipsychotic medications to help with weight gain, such as Zyprexa, until they know that the other treatments have not worked. No medications has yet been FDA approved for the treatment of anorexia.